Welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining this session on a Sunday morning, and many thanks to the Kansai Jolts and Giles for this opportunity to share some practical classroom ideas. You can see my title here, and I must apologize, I got 1,000 slides and it's going to be a little bit pecha-kucha, but let's share. Type your ideas in the chat. You've got 1 minute. So why do people travel? Any ideas? Why do you travel? Why do people travel? Nobody's typing in the chat. Come on, kids. Yeah, find food. Yeah, nice. Connect. Yeah. Yeah, different experiences. Better weather. Ooh. Yeah, better weather for sure. Be the snowbird. Find beer and wine. Anything else? Yeah, yeah. Ooh, become influencers. Conferences, right? Maybe work reasons. Anything else? Ditto. Yeah, especially with the pandemic, we've been away from our family and friends. Yeah, history, nice. A lot of food, experience different things. One more, yeah, famous sites, World Heritage sites, yeah. Other people's lifestyles. Cool. Okay, and next question, where was your last trip and what did you do? I went to Taiwan and I did food markets, night markets. How about you? Type in the chat. Might have been a short trip, a long trip. Where did you last leave home? Ooh, meditation. Ooh, jolt. Nice. Better weather in Izu. Ooh, right. Conferences, lots of conferences. Yeah, 3 years ago. Okay. The food hunt. Anything else? Ah, nice. Yeah, gather with friends. Okay, next question. What do you think was one positive impact and of that trip you took and one negative impact on the local community there? Yeah, 30 seconds. So I spent a lot of money. I spent a lot of money in Taiwan. Any positive or negative impacts of your travel? Some of you talked about culture, meeting people. Nobody? Right. Local, yeah, local, yep. Good energy, right. Oh, community. Great. Okay, thank you for that. So lots of positives and lots of negatives, and yeah, I guess everyone has experienced different, kinds of trips, diverse reasons for traveling, family, work, community, etc. And clearly our travel activities and trips have impact on places, people, environments we visit, and both positive and negative effects. So making decisions when we travel to minimize the negative effects is what sustainable tourism and ethical travel is about. And that's kind of how I lead into my course. Just to give you some background to this course I've been teaching this year, I was asked to just create a 14-week professional English elective called English for Tourism. I had quite a lot of free rein. I could use a textbook or not. The link to my Google Drive is there. The learners on this course were really diverse. It was great because it was an elective, so they were first up to fourth years. They were multi-majors, so they brought a lot of really interesting ideas and interests into the classroom, and they were kind of all intermediate to and above, but there was still quite a mixed level. So in planning the syllabus, my goals were to, obviously I had to develop language skills and content knowledge that included, but also went beyond those typical situational role plays that I found in many travel English textbooks, which tended to be kind of native speakers, Anglophonic and Eurocentric, which is, interesting. So I found that, Obviously, travel and tourism is all about cross-cultural experiences, which some of you said, learning about new ways of life, different viewpoints. So, and also that travel and tourism leisure is also a privilege for some of us and a source of income and livelihoods work for others. So a class on English for tourism is a great opportunity for students and teachers for us all to explore together social issues like diversity, equity and inclusion, and those global environmental issues of sustainability and how to be a responsible, ethical traveller. Oops. So yeah, along with the language focus, I really wanted students to be able to bring in I wanted me to be able to, oh, sorry, I'm so nervous. So along with language focus on functional practical English for tourism professionals and travellers, kind of soft ESB, I wanted to bring in this relevant content knowledge. So that's the CLIL approach. So students could develop a critical understanding of these important issues. It's a very short course, so all I could do was aim to plant some seeds of awareness around these issues, both as a consumer traveller and also as staff working in the industry. So my syllabus checklist, planning any syllabus, so it doesn't have to be just this tourism English course, but it's basically it's our teacher mindset, have an asset view of students as the resources. So teaching anything about diversity, equity, inclusion, it's got to come from the students. It's their process, their journey, their questions. So it's me broadening my teacher lens, having an asset view of students. And I think that when we see students as a classroom resource, we tend to create more spaces for students to draw on their own rich resources of experiences of diversity, often hidden diversity, and their experiences, their identities, backgrounds, and lived experiences of travel, interculturality, and difference. And yeah, I wanted to kind of tap into the specific areas of interest amongst the class and also their diverse learning skills and goals. So I balance the textbook situational role play units. Yeah, there's models there, and then students get to generate their original scripts from role play tasks, lots of learner-centered activities. And of course, this is connected with the content focus that is the teacher's input. So lots of visual representation of diversity, people and context in my slides and in the handouts for the students. And then peer teaching. So students are creating their own mini research presentations, role plays. So they're applying the frameworks of diversity, equity and inclusion that they're learning and exploring, and those ideas of ethical, what is ethical travel and sustainable tourism. Number 5. So I think if we can help create an inclusive classroom through activities, language and materials, students will be able to co-create the knowledge together with their peers through these role plays, discussion, research. So I have lots of icebreakers, lots of free talk at the beginning of every class so that, you know, they're getting to know each other, their diverse backgrounds. The students set the community norms. We discussed that in the first class, and they came up with things like be respectful, be curious, ask questions, help each other. So that's the inclusion bit. Everyone's normal is different. So for example, in the early units of the first unit of the textbook, what are some travel and tourism industry jobs? So they brainstorm, they generate the vocabulary, drawing on their own knowledge. And then I just have some kind of backup images, checking, understanding that they've covered all the various kind of occupations, roles in the travel industry, things that they might be aspiring to if they have a career in that field. So I try and make sure there's always lots of gender diversity, ethnic diversity, context, you know, countries, places, etc. in my images. And then moving on, they also talked about what kinds of tours do people take. So again, you can select, make sure that you have a wide variety of travellers, whether it be ability, disability, family groups, ethnicity, also locations. So it doesn't have to just be New York and Spain. It can be, you know, night markets, can be rural, urban locations, global north and south locations. And again, that's just starting to plant those seeds or stimulate those questions that students have about what is diversity. And I'm just going to really present a couple of projects or presentation tasks. Obviously, they take a few lessons for each kind of assessed task. So I always try and start where the students, what they know, what's familiar, their hometown. So getting to think about 2 sightseeing spots in Japan or their home country. I had students from China in my class and some that had lived abroad. So they had, they felt their home was also in Canada or Panama. Yeah, back in the day, we had a New Zealand Tourism Board campaign called Don't Leave Home Till You've Seen the Country. So again, getting students to think about domestic tourism, particularly in terms of the global pandemic and the travel restrictions, and more crucially, the global climate crisis and the urgent need for us to reduce fossil fuel emissions caused by flying. And some of you talked about our carbon footprint. So getting them to talk about those things. They're famous or off the beaten track locations. So starting to, get students to think outside the box, beyond Kyoto and, Nagano for skiing. So those famous places. I try and use lots of, authentic materials. So I've got these really cool cards from the Tachikawa Tourism Board. They kindly let me take a whole set away. That's the textbook I use. So I want to give a shout out to Japanese textbook writers, Reiko Fujita. It's a really good textbook, very practical, a little bit of bilingual stuff to scaffold, some really good models and not that kind of Anglo-Eurocentric sort of view. So yeah, that's been a great textbook. Role play 1 was just having students recommend a tour in Japan so they could do a little bit of research, or it could just be about their hometown. But, I wanted them to imagine they're a tour guide. They write out a kind of a script and they decide on the target group. So this is the diversity stuff later on, okay? Who the tour will suit, who they imagine the tour is for, okay? And then practice. And then in the presentation class, these are the kinds of things. I set them up, make sure that they cover these things. And again, there's materials in the QR code at the end. And then as a tourist, so obviously it's kind of like a presentation, but I wanted to make it more role play, interactive style of presentation. So they're in line-up pairs. I give them role cards. So from the beginning, I made a bunch of role cards. I think I elicited these from the students in the previous class, made the role cards. They're pretty simple. An off-duty flight attendant with only a few days off, or you are a father with 2 teenage kids who prefer video games. So they have to kind of embody that tourist role and then listen to the presentation, listen to the travel agent, ask some questions. So lots of active listening and Q&A. And then they decide which tour their persona would join, okay? And then in the next class, give them feedback, they peer evaluate, maybe they write a reflection. And then in the next class, we can more transparently bring in issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion in tourism. And I asked them to look at their last week's role card and just to discuss together, what assumptions did you make about that traveler's nationality or language or age or gender identity or eating habits, religion? So they have some really interesting discussions about that. So there's 3 or 4 in the group, so they've got 3 or 4 different traveler personas to talk about. And then I bring them back, we have a plenary and we talk about why tourism diversity matters, and that how meeting the needs of diverse travelers, it makes business sense, yeah? And it's really important for us, even as fellow travelers in new global environments. So then I asked them to go back to their groups to look at the role play cards and the tour that they presented. And together, just look, focusing on one student at a time, maybe, and discuss 2 or 3 improvements or additions that would help attract those kinds of travelers more and make them feel more welcome and included. So it's just kind of planting the seed that the more broadly they think in terms of diversity and inclusion, the more successful their tour or their business is going to be, and also the broader, richer travel experience they're going to have. Oops. Okay. And I mean, the kids all know about sustainability and SDGs. So again, we start talking about sustainable tourism, and this can mean supporting diversity and equity in the kinds of staff that are hired to work in the industry. Let me just check. Sorry. Yeah. And we talk about how diversity in Japan is increasing, and the notion of who is Japanese and what is Japanese identity is expanding. So hopefully the faces of Japanese hotel staff and tour leaders will expand to reflect the diversity in Japanese society. We saw this represented in the Tokyo Olympics, so why not in the tourism industry? So having, multilingual Japanese out front, mixed race or Korean Japanese, Brazilian Japanese, Black Japanese as the face of Japan and the tourist industry. Yeah. So then I get the students again to brainstorm what kinds of international tourists might you meet or have you met or assist here in Japan now that the borders are opening. I say to them that we will see more and more diverse people and visitors moving around and traveling in Japan. So I get them to brainstorm a list in their groups, thinking about these sort of areas. Depends on the language level. Some of them need these prompts that can be useful, other ideas. And these are the kinds of things that they came up with. So they had either met, talked with, seen different kinds of travelers, different reasons for why people travel in Japan specifically or other places. I really like the heartbreak trip, cheer up travel. And so then we have discussions on how diverse travelers, different travelers may have specific needs, different kinds of needs. And do they think all customers are travelers treated equally and fairly by staff? How accessible is different tours or different activities, and could they be improved? And so, we have quite a big discussion about that. So that's just setting in place that DEI mindset. Bearing in mind this is only a 14-week course. Moving on, maybe the next class, I show them this image. Take nothing but memories, leave nothing but footprints, as this has been attributed to Chief Seattle First Nation leader. What do you think the saying means? So they talk about that. And they have a kind of a pretty good understanding about not leaving trash and not damaging natural environments. And so we talk again about how tourists and travel industry travelers and staff in the industry, we have positive and negative effects on local environments, on local communities where we go to, the cultures, traditional ways of life, local languages, economies, businesses, and of course the natural environment. And with climate change and economic disparities, poverty being amongst the most urgent global issues facing all countries, we all need to be active in supporting sustainable tourism. So, and some claim that tourism can be a driver in working towards the United Nations SDGs. So again, I bring back the same familiar images. Students brainstorm what are some of the different impacts that travellers and tour companies have on local communities. Oops. And, we elicit them to the board, and they talk about litter and global warming, CO2, commercialism, big chain hotels putting smaller businesses out of business. And I just bring this to their awareness because some of them are going to be working in the travel industry. Some of them already have part-time jobs in hotels. And just that there is a global code of ethics for tourism, the United Nations World Tourism Organization. Yeah, and that the Code of Ethics is there to help maximize tourism's socio-economic contribution to local economies and minimize its possible negative impacts. Then I just make sure they do understand what ethical tourism is. And I took this from Ellen H's lovely Prezi. Ethical tourism means that we think consciously about our actions as travellers, our impact on environment, local people and economies, and that our travel, our activities should benefit people and the environment in different destinations. So that's a nice, simple. So again, getting students to brainstorm and think about ways that they know or imagine how ethical travellers can have a positive impact on different communities, different destinations, ways of life. Again, making sure there's good visual representation of diverse travellers, locations, situations. So urban, rural, nature, outdoor, cultural, historic, reasons for travel. And they come up with some pretty cool stuff. So these are what the latest class came up with. So these are things we should do. Be prepared, do some research, respect local customs, think about our carbon footprint, reducing plastic, learning some greetings in the local language. Yeah, supporting local businesses when we buy our omiyage, and don't accept plastic bags. You know, respect the religious or local customs. Don't remove things as souvenirs, especially natural things. Yeah. So, and then we have some time to talk about what is ecotourism, and I don't know how much time I've got left actually, if anyone wants to shout out. Yeah, ecotourism, we watch a little YouTube clip, and agritourism, some of them are really into food. What are social businesses? Just again, bringing that to their awareness. NGO groups, so visiting a cafe that trains people with disabilities, staying in a minshuku that is preserving local heritage, you know, local farm to table cuisines, etc. And again, revitalizing rural communities. Hey Glenn, how much time do I have? And so role play 2 then leads into they have to research and present a sustainable tourism project or ethical travel experience.
Sorry, Jen, you have 4 minutes.
Oh, okay, thank you, sir. Yeah, so researching and reporting on an existing ethical travel experience. They came up with some really cool stuff. So again, imagining that they are a travel rep, a study abroad program coordinator, a local guide, those kind of roles. It could be in Japan or another country. Then they present that to potential customers. So that's their rubric brief. And then I just remind them, try and answer the who, what, when, where, why, how. Whoops. And then because, you know, it's only an elective and they do a heck of a lot of work for this once a week class. So I do give I teach them how to use those Google search keyword strings, give them a few examples. I said, I went to Kamonohashi project in Cambodia, which was founded by a Waseda student many years ago. It's about child sex trafficking, giving women weaving skills, a source of income. And yeah, so then they kind of do it like a role play, and then they also have the travellers, the audience have to give feedback and award sustainable tourism stars and some reasons why. How well did they apply the frameworks of DEI and ethical travel? Have a bit of a plenary. And just basically saying to these young people, we have the choice how we can spend our tourist dollar or yen. And also, you know, later on in their jobs and careers, we can make industry partnerships with local communities and environmental NGOs. Oh, so we don't have time to type in the chat again, but maybe just close your eyes for 10 seconds and in your dreams, where is a truly off the beaten track destination you'd like to visit and explore? What would you do there? So this is how I lead them into their final project for it's a pair project, so some collaboration. We have this one little website I found, and they can use that to choose a destination. We go through that together, or they can choose something themselves, which a lot of them do. They have to create a unique weekend tour. Oops, there's my alarm. And yeah, do a little research to teach them background, but then apply awareness of issues of DEI, sustainable and ethical travel, and cultural and environmental awareness by giving some advice to us so we can be ethical travelers. And then they create a PowerPoint. So this is their rubric. They created this sort of rubric. I just made it sound posh for you guys. They kind of create the rubric and the assessment in class 2, you know, what they think is important for a tour operator or a presenter. Yeah. So they're going to teach each other about unknown travel destinations. Yeah. So here are some examples. This student actually lived in Panama for a few years. And one piece of cultural advice he gave us was, this Panama is very gay friendly. So he said something sweet like, so you cannot talk meanly about LGBTQ people. So I thought that was amazing. And then Obuse, a nice local one, wheelchair accessible, a nice autumn trip to Nagano, Hokusai's hometown. Eco tour to Fiji, talking about plastic waste. The Borneo eco tours for animal lovers, you know, visiting an elephant sanctuary and orangutan. But what I loved about these students, without me, they said this is a partnership with a local Sukao medical outreach camp, so bringing health into remote areas in Borneo. So that's that. And then Michinoku, I'm going to walk that trail in March. Yeah, revitalizing Tohoku with a hiking trail. And Tuvalu has high poverty rates due to climate change, so talking about that with carbon footprints, and agenda-based, empowering women and girls through handicrafts, good place to buy your souvenirs. And then we had some final reflections. I wanted to know whether students really found it useful to talk about these issues of diversity and sustainability and being an ethical traveler. And 100% said, I strongly agree. And these are some of their other comments. One of them really enjoyed the a presentation about Ainu culture, and she wanted to find out more. And a couple of them said they're going to study abroad this year in spring, and so they're going to use a lot of what they learned, the mindset about being flexible, being inclusive, being open to learning about different ways of being and cultures, not just the language study abroad. So there are some references, and obviously there's masses of stuff on the internet, but I think that any English for tourism course cannot just be about greeting Mr. and Mrs. Smith and their 2 children at the hotel. It can be so much richer, and the students are really into it. Content was probably more than language. They already had enough language, but I think, you know, we can add these kinds of mindsets and frameworks to any kinds of communication English, CLIL, you know, for all levels of learners. So if you have any questions, there's a QR code. So the QR code has the slides. It has a few handouts that you can just adapt and make your own or bin. You know, nothing I do is original. I think nothing we do is original. So please feel free to go to my Google Drive and use anything that might. And if you have any questions about any materials, please feel free to email me. Thank you very much. And sorry I spoke so fast.